Imagine a life just waiting, but not passively, more like active, dedicated service. Year after year, decade after decade, all anchored in faith inside this sacred place.
Watching, praying, fasting, really committed to this profound hope, something passed down for generations.
Yeah. And then, after maybe 80 years, this one moment arrives. Just an ordinary moment, it seems. A young family, a routine religious thing.
And suddenly, bam, your whole life's expectation is met. You see something totally extraordinary right there in the everyday.
That really captures it. That's the essence of the person we're exploring in this deep dive.
Exactly. She's mentioned in just a few verses, tucked inside one of the most famous stories ever told. But her life, it offers this incredibly powerful picture of devotion and witness.
We're talking about Anna the Prophetess, found in the Gospel of Luke.
That's the one.
So we pulled together, a stack of sources for this deep dive. The biblical text itself, of course, but also reflections on the history, the theology, all that.
Our mission really is to try and understand the different dimensions of this remarkable woman's life. Who was she? What was this extraordinary devotion all about?
And what does her encounter with the baby Messiah actually mean? Especially for those who are waiting, just like her.
Right. And to really get Anna's story, you have to kind of place yourself in her world.
Okay.
The scene is the temple in Jerusalem, this magnificent place, bustling, the absolute center of Jewish life and worship.
Big deal.
Huge. And it's probably like 40 days after Jesus' birth. Mary and Joseph are there to do what the law required, to present their firstborn, make an offering.
And just before Anna comes into the picture, there's Simeon, right?
Yeah.
Another elderly, faithful person.
Exactly. He's just had his own profound encounter, recognizing the baby as the Messiah. The stage is sort of set.
Okay, so let's dive into the details. Who was Anna? What did the sources, starting with Luke, tell us? Luke 2.3637.
Right. Luke gives us her identity straight away. She's a prophetess, and the sources really emphasize how significant that title is.
Prophetess.
I mean, in that cultural context, Second Temple Judaism, prophecy wasn't an everyday thing. And for a woman to hold that title publicly, it marked her as someone uniquely called to speak God's truth.
Even in that society.
Especially then. While women definitely had religious roles, a public prophetic ministry like this was notable. It suggests she had real respect.
And Luke gives specifics about her background, too, which is, interesting. Daughter of Phanuel, tribe of Asher.
Yes, and that Asher lineage is particularly fascinating. Some sources really dig into this.
Why? What's the significance?
Well, Asher was one of the 10 northern tribes, the ones scattered by the Assyrians centuries before, largely considered lost.
Oh, right, the lost tribes.
Exactly. Now, some people from those tribes definitely drifted south and rejoined Judah, but having an identifiable lineage from Asher, it connects Anna not just to Jerusalem, but to the whole ancient, sometimes divided history of Israel.
So it's like she represents a broader hope.
Kind of. It subtly underscores that the Messiah, the fulfillment of God's promises, is for all of Israel, even the branches that were separated for so long.
Luke also mentions her personal history. Married for 7 years and then widowed.
Right. Which then leads into the point about her age. Luke 2.37 says she was advanced in years, specifically to the age of 84.
84, that's old.
Very. But here's a little nuance some scholars point out. The original Greek phrasing, it's slightly ambiguous.
How so?
It could mean she was 84 years old total when she met Jesus. Or it could mean she had been a widow for 84 years.
Wow. So if she was widowed for 84 years, plus the 7 years she was married, plus however old she was when she got married, she could have been well over 100.
Exactly. Way over 100. Now, the common translation, and probably most likely, is that she was 84 years old in total.
Okay.
But that linguistic possibility is there. And either way, we're talking about a long life. A very long life, mostly spent as a widow after a pretty short marriage. It adds context to her long service in the temple.
And that location, the temple, is just central to everything, isn't it? Luke says she never left the temple or did not depart from the temple.
Pretty much constant presence, yeah. Which brings us from who she was, this aged prophetess, widow, from Asher to how she lived.
Right.
And the sources are clear. This wasn't just, hanging out on the temple grounds. Luke stresses her dedication, worshiping night and day, fasting and praying.
That phrase, night and day, really jumps out. It suggests a level of just continuous spiritual discipline. That's, frankly, hard to wrap your head around.
It absolutely does. The sources really underline that her life was defined by these active, profound spiritual practices, not just attending services.
Well,
It was a whole lifestyle of devotion. Maybe participating in daily temple rituals, sure, but definitely personal prayer, intercession, regular fasting. The temple wasn't just where she lived, it was the focus of her entire spiritual life.
and keeping that up, day in, day out, for decades in that environment, that takes incredible internal strength, perseverance.
Precisely. We don't know much about earlier hardships, but her life in the temple showcases the internal discipline needed for that kind of continuous worship. And she wasn't alone in her longing.
What do you mean?
She was part of a community within Israel, maybe centered around the temple, that was actively looking forward to the redemption of Jerusalem. Luke mentions that phrase later.
Redemption of Jerusalem. What did that mean to them then?
The sources explain it as this deep-seated hope. It wasn't just spiritual, like forgiveness of sins, though that was part of it. It was often a hope for national restoration.
Ah, so liberation from the Romans.
Yeah.
Israel's glory returning.
Yes, and the coming of the Messiah who would finally establish God's kingdom, bring justice. Anna's life of prayer and fasting, it was likely fueled by that intense waiting, that anticipation for God to act.
And her level of dedication probably set her apart, even among others who were hoping.
Oh, absolutely. It would have earned her deep respect.
So this deep hope, this lifelong discipline, it all comes together in this one critical moment.
Yes. The sources paint this as the absolute climax of her faith, the point her whole life of waiting had been leading towards. Luke 2.38 says she arrived at that very instant.
The timing is incredible.
Isn't it? Mary and Joseph are there with the baby. Simeon has just finished his prophecy and Thanksgiving, and then Anna walks up.
It feels divinely orchestrated. Her lifelong devotion, her prophetic gift, it all prepared her, didn't it? Gave her the spiritual sensitivity to see who this baby was.
That's exactly how it's presented. It wasn't some sudden conversion experience for her. It was the fulfillment. Beautiful, awe-inspiring, everything she'd dedicated her life to realized in that moment.
Her spiritual readiness, built up over decades, let her see the one Israel was waiting for.
Yes. And the Bible captures her immediate reaction. So human, so heartfelt. She began giving thanks to God.
Not quietly either.
Doesn't seem like it. An outward expression. Profound gratitude, recognition pouring out.
But she didn't stop there, did she? The sources point out her next action is just as important.
Crucial. Luke 2.38 goes on. She continued to speak about him to all those who were looking forward to the redemption of Jerusalem.
Ah, so it wasn't just personal thanksgiving. It becomes a public declaration. She sees the Messiah, gives thanks, and immediately starts telling people.
That's her prophetic witness in action. She didn't keep the news, arguably the biggest news ever, to herself. She proclaimed him.
And specifically to others who share that same deep hope, right?
Exactly. To the community of waiting, the ones actively looking, praying for redemption. Anna basically walks up and says, he's here, the one we've been waiting for. This is him.
Wow. Confirmation.
Huge confirmation. And the sources often connect her witness to the bigger picture, the whole sweep of God's promises.
How so?
Her proclamation affirms Jesus is the promised Messiah. It links the specific intimate moment in the temple to centuries of prophecy. Some sources even suggest connections to texts like Isaiah about the Messiah being a light for the nations.
So her recognition is part of unveiling God's plan.
That's one way to see it. An early glimpse of something meant not just for Israel, but for the whole world.
So even though she only appears for, 3 verses?
Just about.
The sources really unpack an enduring legacy from Anna's life.
They do. She's consistently held up as this powerful example of faith. Decades of just, unwavering devotion, patient perseverance through that long, long wait.
Finding her whole purpose, her identity, in constant worship and service there in the temple.
And think about it. Despite her age, her widowhood, she plays this absolutely critical role. Alongside Simeon, she's one of the very first public witnesses to recognize and announce the Messiah.
It's a beautiful picture, isn't it? It's the glory of a life totally dedicated to God, maybe in quiet ways day to day, but leading to this incredible moment of joy, seeing God's promises finally come true after waiting so faithfully.
Absolutely. And the sources also touch on, different theological takes on her role as a prophetess.
Right. Like, what does that title mean exactly? Was it a formal office like Old Testament prophets, or more a specific spiritual gift for that moment?
Exactly. There's discussion around that. While she isn't described, say, leading or teaching like some male prophets, her recognition and immediate public declaration, that definitely functions prophetically.
And some traditions really honor her for that.
Yes, the Catholic and Orthodox churches, for instance, venerate her as a saint. They explicitly recognize her holiness and her significant witness.
So that shows the lasting impact she's had.
It really does. It underlines the enduring respect for her, even with just those few verses. Her life is seen as this testament to dedication, to being prepared.
Okay, so let's bring it home. Drawing all this together. What can someone listening today, in our very different world, actually learn from Anna's ancient story?
Well, I think her example offers some really powerful, timeless lessons. First, just the importance of persistent, dedicated devotion, spiritual disciplines like prayer, worship.
Even when nothing seems to be happening.
Especially then. Anna shows that faithfulness isn't just for the easy times or moments of great clarity. It's crucial during those long stretches of waiting, maybe even uncertainty.
And her immediate reaction after seeing Jesus telling others, that really speaks to the power of faithful witness, doesn't it?
It really does. Not keeping important spiritual insights or beliefs locked up inside, sharing them, especially with people who might be searching or hoping themselves.
Anna also seems like such a strong model for finding purpose in serving God, no matter what your circumstances are. Age, being widowed, those weren't disqualifiers for her.
Not at all. They became the context for her incredible faithfulness. Her story is just such a powerful reminder that God can use people, bring profound spiritual insight through them in absolutely every season of life.
Usefulness to God isn't about youth or strength, necessarily.
It seems it's more about spiritual readiness, faithfulness.
Ultimately, then, Anna's life kind of encourages us to cultivate that spiritual side. Trust God's timing, even when it feels slow.
Stay attentive to how God might be working, maybe in unexpected ways.
And just be ready to recognize and respond when he shows up.
Exactly. Her faithfulness in the waiting was what prepared her. It made her ready to be one of the very first witnesses when the Messiah finally arrived.
Okay, so quick recap. Anna the Prophetess, aged, devout widow, tribe of Asher, decades of faithful service, prayer, fasting in the temple, prepared her for a divine appointment.
Right place, right time. Recognized the infant Jesus as the Messiah. Responded immediately with gratitude and public proclamation to others who were also waiting for redemption.
Her brief appearance leaves this powerful legacy: dedicated faith, patient perseverance, the deep joy of seeing God's promises fulfilled.
A remarkable story packed into just a few lines.
And maybe the thought to leave you with as you think about Anna is this. She spent a lifetime faithfully waiting, and because of that dedication, she was ready when the moment came. So what are you faithfully dedicating yourself to right now? And how might that preparation, that waiting, be getting you ready for something significant that is still to come?